comic books, there's two types of writing scripts. There's the DC style and the Marvel style. DC style is almost like a screenplay. You know, there's a description of the panel, and then there's actual dialogue written out. Marvel style is you just describe what's going on visually. You just you don't even break it up into panels. And the artist tells the entire story in pictures, and it gets it back to the writer, and the writer sits down and then figures out what the dialogue is. So that's how I wrote all that stuff, and still do. I think, you know, when editors got more power, they wanted to have more control. So they, you know, I think most comics are done full script now. But in those days, all the Marvel stuff was done plot first, drawing second, and then dialogue last. It's hard to understand why there was a basic difference in Marvel and DC comics unless you understand the process of how they created it. And like, you know, that mode of giving the artist all the storytelling leeway was a huge factor. But you know, people argue that's it's hard to judge that because, you know, EC comics, they were written and lettered before they even got to the artist. I mean, they were just a standard 6 panels on a page, and then the letterer, you know, got the script and lettered all the balloons. The artist just filled in under the balloons. And you know, if you said that to a current artist, they just freak. You know, I worked for both companies. My first editorial job was at DC, and then from DC I went to Marvel. And everybody else did the same thing. They just went back. I mean, it's only 2 games in town. So you just, you know, it's like NBC, ABC, and CBS. You know, it's like, they're the players. At a certain level, that was the only job opportunities. So, you know, people just went back and forth. But there is a big difference, though, in the company philosophies and how they you know, how they work out in the storylines. Over the years, because of people going back and forth, a lot of that sort of became gray. But you know, in the beginning, it was very sort of that DC was sort of parochial, you know, that they had really definite ways of telling the story and defining the characters. And you know, at Marvel, it seemed more like anarchy. You know, in DC, it was very straight-laced. You know, it was very sort of, well, you know, I'm Batman and I'm a badass, you know, or I'm Superman and I'm just a nice guy. You know? And DC characters were very sort of sure of themselves, you know. And Marvel, everybody was like full of angst and like, oh my God, like I'm responsible for my uncle's death, you know, or plagued with neuroses, you know. It's like, you know, you could picture all the Marvel characters, you know, going to see a therapist, you know, but like the DC characters, they were like absolutely sure of themselves. Hey, I'm right. And you better believe it. Yeah, so that was, I think, there was a big sort of difference there. A lot of people don't talk about that. I always thought it was kind of obvious.